All right, because I have so much experience taking SATs, I know exactly what this is testing just based on the answer choices. Especially on this new digital SAT, there aren't very many rules that they test where the wording of the stuff kind of really changes in big ways. So I know that this question is basically testing modifiers. So I'll explain what that is as we look at it. So let's just dive right into the passage. The first sentence doesn't really matter. I'll read it anyway, but it's not going to affect my answer to the second one. On April 5th, 1977, Kitty Cohn and 150 other disability rights activists entered a San Francisco federal building. After pleading for years to no effect for the passage of key anti-discrimination legislation. So I'm going to highlight that in pink because that is the modifier right there. After pleading for years for the passage of key anti-discrimination legislation. So that's a modifier. It's giving us extra information. What is it giving us extra information about? That's what's got to be right after that comma. The first thing we talk about. So try to turn the modifier into a question. Who was pleading for years for the passage of key anti-discrimination legislation? Who was pleading? Was it the pressure? Pressure can't plead. Pressure is not a thing. It doesn't have a mouth, so it cannot ask for something. It cannot plead. So that doesn't even make sense. Choice B, a sit-in protest. Can a protest plead for something? No. A protester can plead for something, but a protest is not, again, a thing with a mouth that can ask for something, so that doesn't make any sense. Now, lawmakers were getting closer, right? Because that's at least a person, but it's not the right person, right? The lawmakers are not pleading for the legislation. They're the ones kind of not taking care of what they should be taking care of and passing it. But D, the activists, they were the ones pleading for years for the passage of key anti-discrimination legislation. So this is what a modifier question is about. If you have this kind of like intro clause that's setting something up, the thing right after that clause has to be whatever we were just setting up, right? So that's why I say turn it into a question. The answer to that question is the first thing we've got to see at the start of that sentence. Who was pleading for years for the passage of key anti-discrimination legislation? The activists. So the activists increased pressure on lawmakers by staging a sit-in protest until their demands were addressed, and then, yeah, everything was good. So look, notice that because I knew the rule, when I was sorting through those choices, I felt confident looking at just the first word or two. Because that's all that really mattered, right? Is what is that first thing? The rest of the wording, I'm not going to let that impact my answer, right? So this is the most important change from old SATs to this SAT. The grammar questions on the current digital SAT are purely about grammar rules. They are not about style. So it's not about like it's not like there's gonna be multiple answer choices that are grammatically correct, but that one is just better sounding or more stylistically correct. That is no longer on the test. It is absolutely stuff that was on the old test, but is no longer there. So that means when you're looking at these choices and you're reading the different answers in the blank, you can't be thinking which one sounds best. Maybe the right answer will end up sounding best because the grammatically correct answer will also sound good because it is grammatically correct. But I don't think that's a guarantee, and I know the SAT, they're tricky. It's very likely that they design a question where one other choice just maybe sounds a little bit better or at least is close. So if we think about it less as style and less as sound and more about the rule dictates what needs to follow that comma, then there isn't any room for doubt. The answer is obvious because only one choice starts with the thing that's supposed to be there after that comma. So I'm making a big deal about this because this is a rule that most people don't know. It is a rule where most people are going to just try to rely on sound and how it feels to kind of say the sentence, and that might get you the right answer, but it is not a reliable way to get the right answer. So you really have to memorize this rule about how modifiers work and what needs to follow them. Hopefully this little mini lesson will save you that point if it comes up. This is not a rule that's tested often, but when it is tested, it really does help to know the rule.